everybody, to the Topologies podcast, and we are rolling. And we're rolling with Roland today, who's going to tell everything he knows about a Octopologies powered LeSS transformation. Roland, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you. That was Alexei Kravitsky in the back, not showing his real face, but his avatar, sending messages from space. And I'm sending messages from France. So if I get glitches in my broadcasts, then I really want to apologize. This is the first time. And as you know, as we go on and experiment, we might run into trouble. That's also a little bit the key message of the story that I'm going to tell about this LeSS transformation that I'm engaged in. It's all about experimentation, trying things, failing, and trying over and over again. Hey, listen up. Org topologies and a LeSS transformation. Now, if you are a little bit knowledgeable about org topologies, then you know that we like to see people to try to start transformations to move towards the higher archetypes or the third adaptive topology. And the adaptive topology can actually be implemented using LeSS. So there is this connection. Org topologies and the stuff that we have to help you to move up, and the ultimate state where we see it's possible and we do implementations according to the LeSS principles and framework. I was in the luxury, I was just lucky to hear about people that were interested in possibly going towards LeSS. And through the LeSS company, we got in touch. We had some talks, and ultimately we got the gig, as they call this in our jargon of consultants. And we started there, and we are well on our way. We had our flip, and I thought it was interesting to share with you what we've done so far and what we've learned. And you'll probably hear a lot of things that you know already from other LeSS flips, but still there are some differences, some key differences that I want to point out, and also hear your opinion about, because maybe it's not so different after all. We'll see. Okay, you could see my screen. Now let me see if this moving to the next slide works. Yes. Stekker is Dutch for plug-in, because that's what they do. They are in charging cars stuff for electric vehicles. And there's an R&D department with about 50 people. There's 10 people remote, and we are what we call in the EV, electric vehicle charging market. Now, you see already 50 people in R&D. Okay, that sounds reasonable for a normal LeSS and not less huge. And what is actually the reason why they were looking for changing their current org design? Because they were already growing very fast. They had a very successful startup period, and now they're in their scale-up phase. And they found out that actually adding more people to the mix didn't really make the deliveries go faster, or the system was actually blocked, and they were not aware why this exactly was, what the root cause was they had to fix. Now they see that over time the deliveries becoming more and more delayed. So while in the beginning they had like a couple of weeks, 1 or 2 sprints to ship, over time, and I'm talking about years, it went slower and slower and slower. So the time to market was growing. Adding people didn't help to solve the problem of growing time to market. You can guess what happened by adding those people, right? Things just got slower, exactly. And the innovation rate was going down. So they felt that they started as a pioneer in this business, and they were really number one. But as time passed by over the years, and they had these growing pains or growing difficulties, they were losing their pole position in the market. They were no longer able to ship those real delighters and those beautiful new features. They were having a hard time catching up with what competitors were doing. So at this point in time, the head of engineering and the head of product decided that they had to go shop around and look to see what there would be in the market, maybe for alternatives, for solutions. Some of the people working at Stekker They had experiences in previous organizations that were less like, with more autonomy in the teams, larger teams really collaborating, and they were proposing this direction of solution to the head of engineering. And he was interested, and they started to visit some of those LeSS meetups and reading into what LeSS could possibly do. And this is actually a huge advantage, which I'm going to need to point out. If you go to a company that is having problems, but really not interested in real change, that's one of the key problems why you cannot move fast. It will block everything you do because you need to spend a tremendous a lot of time in educating everyone. Look at what Les says. Educate everyone, because you need to get these minds geared towards understanding this new kind of org design. Now, this company is really unique. From day to day, as we were talking to these people, we were really surprised by the amount of knowledge the leaders already had about LeSS and the LeSS principles. And they were really, really convinced that this was the way forward. So all this problematic talking about finding out or trying to make them see what would be a good solution to elevate was actually already out of the equation. We didn't have to put a lot of time and effort into it. So I'm going to start with lessons learned. If you don't have a lot of time and you still need to eat those sandwiches, then you can just listen now to the lessons learned, and then skip the details, because I'm going to go into the details after this, and then repeat lessons learned at the end. Okay, so the time saver, item 1, I just told you, management knows between brackets, less, okay? They want it, they think, and they've done some studying in it, and they think this is the way forward. But not the whole management, only head of engineering and head of product. There are top management, like from the managing directors. They're okay if it's successful, but they're not really invested deeply in the LeSS ideas. This is a problem, by the way. But my choice was to postpone this problem and use the momentum and the enthusiasm of the head of engineering. As long as I have a green light, I'm going all for it, which will buy me time to explain and show, and then tell and teach. Co-ownership of the problem and the solution. I think Topologies has proven a lot of value for me in winning the gig, and also in explaining to the people of what we are trying to do. Explaining really giving them good insights in the problems they had in their existing dynamics of the old organizational structure, which was component team dynamics. And showing them how to resolve all those dependencies by creating a team of teams. So that really helped me in all the training sessions that I've done. Monitoring critical mass of believers. So I think what we do constantly is making an assessment of who's in and who's not in. It sounds maybe a bit ugly, but I think it really has proven its value. There were like green, orange, and red to say like, hey, there are some people who are really problematic. There are some people that are really opposing and that their behavior is toxic. We need to contain them. We need to have a small plan on how we're going to do it with those people to damage control. The orange people is like, they will follow, right? So let's focus on the green people then. If we contain the couple of Einzelgängers that are really opposing, then let's focus on the bigger green group, and let's ensure that that group grows with the orange people, so that they also become more and more green. And I think that to have this focus in the beginning helped me to assess if we were going for the anticipated flip date or not. Because you need to have like a critical mass of people who want to change and who really understand stuff that we're going to do to really do the flip. Otherwise, everybody's going to be lost. There's going to be this balance towards the negative part of the group, and then you're in a bad position. And what you want after you want to make an assessment whether after your flip the majority of the people is going to carry on and want to carry on and pull all those others with them. So this was like our North Star. We set a fixed flip date and we were assessing, do we have the critical mass to go or do we need to postpone? Of course, use volunteering as usual. We did select volunteers though a little bit, especially in the beginning. We created a change team, and to fill the change team with people, we asked, because we didn't know anybody, we didn't see anybody yet, we were still outside the company, and we said we need a change team and go think about who should be in there. Preferably everybody, like people who are now in a sort of a product owner role or a fake product owner role, or people who are in a developer role, senior or some junior, just a real good mix. But let's make sure these are people who are who have a change mindset. So I already mentioned tight target date to keep momentum. So the flip date was like set, arbitrary, very ambitious, but let's monitor to see if it's feasible. Focused coaching, it's incredible. I don't know if you've ever been in a transformation with some speed and energy. There's so much happening, and it becomes difficult along the way to focus and to not be overwhelmed by all those things that pop up and that you need to handle. And of course, it's not my change; it's their change. So we make sure that the people themselves are enabled to shape their change and to take action. But still, you need to be, you need to check all the stuff that is happening and be aware of it and have an opinion. We are in total now with 3 coaches or scrum masters, if you want. And we need to speak the same language. We need to see the same. We need to say the same things. And for this, we introduced an easy way to focus our coaching. Improvise. Yes. So this is the Mike Tyson rule. Everybody knows the Mike Tyson rule. The Mike Tyson rule is everybody's got a plan until you get a punch in the face. So we had a plan. We made a plan. We had to make some kind of plan. But we really deviated a lot from the plan, especially making daily schedules for some sessions. When you find out that when your intuition tells you you're not nailing it, change your plan. Don't stick to your plan. Make sure you follow your intuition. This was enough to get started, but we need much more to ensure this change will sustain. Like I was saying, to really handle all the people who are still not fully on board. And the change in total will, of course, take a couple of years before everything is really settled in and proven to be systemic, like real less. And that's unavoidable. So it's not like, hey, we've done this change in a couple of months, and now we've done the less flip and it's perfectly less done. No, it's like a mess in the beginning, like everywhere, but we're on the good way to make it into a very nice less. If you have any question, by the way, don't hesitate to ask. It's drop in. But if you're okay just listening, then I'm also fine just telling what I've experiencing over the couple of months. Now, this is a timeline that I've drawn because I was pretty surprised, actually, that if you look at the time that we needed to really get started, to do coaching with people, it took us 2 months of lead time, really talking to management. So that is head of product, head of engineering, and the managing directors. We started in November, like 10th or 11th of November. And actually, January 27th, we only got management go. And of course, there's Christmas and all that in between. Stecker was like making a selection of possible coaches to support them. They had to make a selection. We had to go there for some talks. We had to show them some plan, some idea of approach, feel each other to see if there was a good click. And then once we were like becoming the ones that would be selected, there was a much more convincing, much more getting people on board from the management team to be done, because they were still like in the belief of, okay, so you coaches are going to join here, and then you are going to teach us how to do better Scrum with the teams. And we will do the announcement that you guys will start working next Friday in the first 10 minutes of the town hall, and that's it. Well, wow, if that's the starting point, and from there moving on to let's create a change team that will drive this change that we can prepare. We need to do a lot of training, right? We need to prepare for what's called a flip. Have you got any idea what we're going to do in this change? And we made this very silly overview of just letters, right? This is all stuff that we need to do, lists of stuff that needs to happen. Uh, to not just overwhelm them, but to really make everybody aware that this is really serious, a lot of work. And my killer argument was, listen, I don't want to jeopardize your company. Okay, I don't. If you want this change to be good, we need to be prepared, and that just takes time and an investment. And if you don't want to do this investment, well, then I'm not going to do your change. It's very simple. It's either this or that. We're going to do it good, or we're not going to do it at all, because then you're telling me you're not into wanting a real change after all. So as it usually goes, if you ask for a week, you get 1 day, and that's what we did. We took it. So we took 1 day to prepare for assembling a change team, and so they were selected by the head of engineering and head of product. It was 15 people on a total of 50. So it's a substantial amount of people to be in the change team to prepare the flip. And we kicked off with a whole day of seeing the main problems, and then trying to figure out with a long timeline on the wall what it is that we should do to do a change, and we had to explain what the change would be like to these people. So that was well, an intense but very valuable day to make the people understand, starting to understand a little bit what we were up to. And I must say, I don't know, in total, maybe we've done like 6 or 7 times the same routine of explaining with orthopologies, and also just in training sessions with other tools and other means. This is a situation where you came from, and this is where we're going to. This is what needs to change: horizontal learning, vertical learning, expanding the scope of work, etc., etc. Yeah. So on February 20th, we had the change kick-off, which means that from launching the launching the change team was getting the team on board so that they understood what needs to be done, and we started to prepare stuff. But on February 20th, the official announcement was made to the whole R&D department. The change is here, and we're going to flip on April 1st. And that's where the larger group was officially told what was happening, and also they were given opportunities to collaborate. Because from there on, we really needed to start with the flip preparation, which means we were planning for workshops, and we've proposed to do this in 3 focus areas. So there was a lot of work to do on the product backlog. We need to prepare new product backlogs for after the flip. They've chosen to not have one less implementation, let's say less with one group, but they needed to have 3 areas, with each of the area a typical customer as a focus group. And of course, when questioning, there was a lot of overlap between the different customer groups. So formally, in less terms, this would be one less implementation. But that was really one bridge too far for the managing directors, because for their feeling, they would have no control whatsoever. And for now, we just took our chances. We've chosen our battles and said, okay, that's fine. So that's the product backlog part, making sure that we have chosen what we would call product owners for now, that they would prepare a backlog for each of their customer segments, and do workshops with people from the development teams to start getting used to story maps, creating a new backlog with end-to-end functionality, to get used to this. Then we did sessions and work on way of working. Although they said they wanted less, they really didn't have a clue actually on how less works. So just the process of having planning and reviews and the multi-team product backlog requirements, that was all like unknown. So there was a lot of work to do on how less really runs, and to explain this to them. Um, yeah, we managed this by a weekly meeting where the change team would get in a call, and we would go over these three areas: backlog, way of working, and tech, to see if they discovered new work to do, if there was stuff that was done or questions that they had. And the input for this work was coming from the sessions that we had before, like on the launch of the change team. I'll finish tech, and then Daniel, you can ask your question. On tech, we started to involve the teams to teach each other about their components, because we were coming from a component landscape. There was 7 teams before, or 8 teams, each with their own component for the whole product, and nobody knew what the others were doing. So yeah, repositories need to be opened. A lot of code sharing needed to be done. We needed to think about how we're going to deal with support after the flip. So there was a lot of work on the technical aspect too. Daniel, tell me.
I may have missed it, but when you were explaining the product backlog, the ways of working and the technical aspects, who was the audience? Just the
Yes.
teams or somebody else?
No, we created a change team, and the change team had, like, from all different teams, someone. It was in total 15 people coming from the 8 original teams, and there was some product management kind of people in there. There were developers in there. There was some Scrum Master kind of type in there. Everybody was in there. The head of product was there, and the head of engineering were there, and 2 coaches driving the change. And so we had this big overview with 3 categories, and we just pushed in all this work that we saw pre-flip, post-flip,
Mhm.
and we just asked, like, okay, guys, this is a list. Enjoy yourself. Go and fix. It's not my change. And then
Uh,
weekly we talked about it. Yeah.
was there anybody else besides the team members and people revolving around the team themselves, like people from sales, from business?
No, no, there was nobody involved in this part of the change from anybody else outside R&D.
All right, I have a follow-up question, but I don't want to consume all time just for me. So if somebody
No,
else
you
wants to
should.
ask.
Yeah, no. There's nobody else raising hands, so go ahead.
Okay. Did you turn into single backlog during this flip from a
Not yet.
situation?
Not yet.
So before there were multiple backlogs, I don't know, per team or per domain, whatever.
Yeah, I will
Um,
show you in a minute. Yeah.
okay, well, why I was asking about involving somebody outside of the R&D was that probably outside of the R&D were parties interested in setting up the priorities for those multiple backlogs. And when you switch to single backlog, it
No.
changes how
Yeah.
the work is prioritized
Yeah.
for those outside parties as well, right?
The outside world, let's say the commercial people, they were like thinking in chunks of work that they wanted for their clients. Like, but there was a very poor connection to translating this into the teams.
Ah, so the outside world already had the single backlog prioritization, kinda.
Sort of, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
that's good compatibility.
yeah. No. Okay, I'll move on if there's no other questions. Okay, interestingly, so the head of product and the head of engineering were really LeSS fans without really deeply understanding LeSS. And with that knowledge, they tried to self-design their new, what they called, target operating model. And that was like a less implementation with 3 areas in it, and each area with a couple of teams, and each area focusing on a specific customer segment. And the customer segment was, the first area is the biggest segment where they were already making a lot of money in. I see my internet connection is unstable. Am I still there? Yeah, okay, good. The biggest customer segment, I will talk slower. Maybe that's less bits over the line. But they needed to retain those customers. And then there is the second area, which was an area of customers that they really wanted to grow because they knew what the market there was asking for, but they didn't have a good offering. And the third area was actually an experimental thing where they think they can make a lot of money, but it's actually uncharted territory. So although I was not a fan of creating three areas, because again, that could lead to local optimizations, I kind of went like, all right, because it could even turn out in the future, I'm not sure, that sustaining the existing market might need a different topology than the one where you want to have pure experimentation, right? Keeping the lights on for existing companies requires possibly a different organizational design than the design needed for really going into probing and trying all this new stuff out. So for me, it was like, possibly, I don't know how this is going to go. Let's go with this proposal. This is where I'm not a LeSS fanatic to beat them to death with why this is a bad idea. We just agreed, let's move on, okay? And we'll figure this out later. At least it's better than where we came from, having 8 teams with 8 local product owners and local optimization. We will now have 3, which is already an advance. So what happened is that this company Stacker, they reach out to the LeSS company and they had people doing a bid. And then we became the ones to do it. And this is not because I have most of successful LeSS transformations on my LinkedIn, but the main reason why they have chosen us is because of, I think, org topologies. Um, for instance, like I just explained about the 3 areas, that's really org topologies thinking. And then I remember in the talks that we had with managing directors and the heads of product and engineering, is that we were just very honest about this. We're not here to sell you less, but we want to move towards less. Okay, we want to elevate your organization, whatever that means. They liked the approach that we were not so much trying to really force them to have a perfect LeSS implementation, that there was room for experimentation. And this is exactly the reason why they didn't want to go with the other parties who were much more focused on, so this is how we do LeSS. This is the last 5 implementations, and this is our run book on how we do it, right? So they had a much more strict definition of their approach moving towards LeSS. All right, existing org design. Head of product, really understanding all those customer requests, but still talking to 8 product owners in 8 component teams, figuring out then how to split all that work across those teams, each of them having their own specialism. There's a portal part and a platform part, of course, and then there's this charging specific groups. So yeah, I mean, it's a mess. Everybody dependent on everything, on everybody. To be able to ship end-to-end value, you will need to have some kind of visibility in the portal for configurations, for fleet managers. You need to have something on the driver in his app. You need to have just some software being installed on the or configuration being pushed onto the charge stations. You know, it's like multiple teams. You need them always, multiple teams. So yeah, this was just waiting for each other. And the funny thing was that the delays between the different teams, you all know the component dynamics, they became bigger and bigger and bigger. And then teams were shouting like, yeah, we're done with this feature. Who's going to integrate it? So this was really a classic example of component teams. Optimizing, that should be, not optimizing. Sorry for that typo. And this was then the proposal. This is not their picture, of course, but this is the org topologies representation of their picture, of their 3 areas. And so each area, one customer group or customer segment. And the biggest one with 3 teams is the segment for retaining the existing customers. Now, I never went into debate whether that was a good idea or a bad idea. But their argument was there's so much work that is deferred that we still need to catch up with. So that's why we need more power there. So let's put 3 teams in that segment. Okay. Oh, by the way, how we did moving from this one to that one was actually fairly simple. I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's a very interesting modern technique using Excel. And then you look at the customer features that are requested, and then you look at all the teams that are needed per item per feature on a horizontal line in the Excel. All the teams that are needed, you cross them out, right? Like we need these 4 teams for this item to ship. We need these 4 teams for that item to ship. These 2 teams, etc. So you get like all the different functionalities against all the different teams, and then you can easily see which kind of functionalities always need the same kind of teams, and that relates to these areas. Okay, and that's when you know which kind of knowledge you need in the new teams and how you are going to break up the old teams and reassemble them into the new areas. So this is not guesswork. This is really based on what is in the backlog, and then I need to add, and what are the future things that they're going to develop with the new groups. And you can really make that match in an Excel spreadsheet. Michael.
So I was actually wondering how much overlap is there between the different
Yeah.
areas that you have there right now in terms of technology and different product parts? Are they working on the same product still, or is it separated?
Yes. Okay. That was one of my fears. A lot of overlap. But then again, we've opened all repositories for everyone. We were thinking that the new work for one of the smaller groups, the exploratory work, that's new software that they're going to build, new features for things that, uncharted territories. So they would be pretty isolated. Turned out to be not true, actually. Then I also thought, well, actually, if everybody can touch each repository, well, we need to see like some customer segment, the biggest customer segment that they want to retain, they use like 80% of all repositories. And then the other group for the market that they still need to catch up, that had like 50%, 60% overlap. So that's a lot. But on the other hand, I was thinking, if they need to solve a problem in area 1, then they just go and solve that problem in area 1. And if area 2 is also working on a problem that is related, would it be really in the same class file? We'll see if that happens. Let's just do it and see how much they're in each other's way, and then take a decision instead of trying to prevent this from happening. And what if it happens? What if area 1 and area 2 have a clash? That would be an opportunity to make them collaborate, and that's not a problem because it's still small enough. It's still just less.
Yeah, that's true. True. I think if I look at it like this, and it for me it's similar to the way I operate with my with the 4 teams that I have right now in my role, and we also have 2 different areas. And I look at them as 2 mini requirement areas. They're not scaled up as much as they are for what less huge says, but I'm also very much in doubt about whether you need to go over, but I think is like 7, 8 teams or something that they mention. So I'm also using a similar approach. So it's nice to see that it's
Well,
coming back.
I don't say, Michael, that doesn't mean that we are both less approved, but this is, according to our topologies, a step in the way to become better if you want to do less. And if so, this is an experiment, you could say, and if it works, and if the optimization is not local, right? Because you also have to balance the amount of learning versus some speed that you can make. And these components were separated for 8 years. They've created incredibly complex components. So if I would throw this into one bucket with one backlog and let them work on one item at the same time, I'm going to set up everything on fire. And now at least I'm containing the problems to a smaller area for them to fix that and make the code simpler to learn the code. And when all that is done, we can maybe move up and start to aggregate those teams into bigger groups. But I think my hope is, my guess is, the teams will come up with this over time to propose that.
Yes, that's also how I experience it, and I can also understand from their point of view that they are probably in those different areas that they are seeing over the long term. We need some sort of investment anyway, so
Yeah,
there's also not like a real value of moving towards one big backlog right away and
no,
having three different areas and reducing the risk a little bit of the experiment that you're doing. Uh,
exactly.
yeah.
So we asked management to select a change people with a change mindset to come and help us out, and we got a good bunch of people, like 15. And then the goal was to, have a list of work in these three areas: way of working, product, and tech area, and then see all the impediments they saw to start working as one big group. Basically, that was the idea, right? Everybody's going to work on everything. Although in three focus areas, what do we need to do to get there? And we inspect and adapt every week on this bunch of work that we had collected. And it was funny how much work they thought they needed to do before the flip to prepare and how much they actually did. I think it roughly taken 30% of the work they thought they needed to do to prepare was done. And the rest was, after all, not so important. So this is also a great way to make the people feel confident because it's there. Every concern they have is listed. They have the ability and the freedom to work on it, but they choose what's important. Okay. And we steer them, of course, a little bit. Like we really were working a lot with the new product owners to create a decent product backlog because that was really difficult for them. While the engineers themselves started to organize cross-component workshops. I didn't do anything. I never visited them. That was something that was arranged by themselves. And all kinds of other concerns they had that were never picked up. Well, apparently they were not so important, like I said. So we used a lot of orthopologies here in training sessions, explanation sessions, Q&A sessions. We just kept on repeating this message by showing the component dynamics on the map and all the dependencies and how it would change by adding more skills to each team, making everybody end-to-end capable, learning how to deploy everything, simplifying code, but also vertically expanding the mandate for the scope of work, understanding customer problems, rather than what do I need to change in my database to get things going, and this is still an ongoing struggle. It's very difficult for the people to stay out of the problem space and stay in the solution space. They really have big difficulties in slicing end-to-end work, but we're getting there. It's getting better all the time, but it's really a big mindset shift for them. And sprinkle information means we were working with this change group, and of course they were inviting or starting workshops and asking people from their team for information or to prepare stuff. And this is like sprinkling information. So without the other people being officially announced, the change is coming in the beginning, there were already people busy with the change, telling them about the change and sharing what they were preparing for the change. And I think that works very well. It makes it like a soft approach to get everybody involved and prepared. So there was this change backlog, weekly inspect and adapt. Head of product was appointed to be change product owner, although I must say his role was not a big leading role. He was making sure there was a space where we had the product backlog, that it was visible, that it was accessible for everybody. And he was leading this weekly meeting. And that was about it. Bi-weekly, the management directors were joining. 3 areas of attention, already said that. And then, this change backlog was really a self-management tool. Okay, so people felt comfortable and that there was an overview, and they had to pick things up. And I think it was 2 times that I had to tell them, my observation is nothing's happening. What do you expect? That Wouter and I here are going to magically fix all the stuff that you need to get fixed for your change? Come on, guys. Get going. Like twice. That was it. to really go like, shit, that date is there. If we don't do anything, nobody's going to do it. And that really worked very well. But you need to be patient and you need to let them fail. Maybe I can highlight some things that what kind of training? Les always says train everyone. So we didn't get the permission to do real training. And then after 3 or 4 weeks, I went back to the MDs and really convinced them that without training, this flip was going to be a disaster. And the reason for this was that I was going into each and every team's daily Scrum, so that I could really observe the teams, how they were doing Scrum and understanding Scrum. And the level was beyond anything usable. So I brought this message back and say, hey, I'm not going to be able to coach this because it's 50 people. So let's push this into a training. And the training was actually a combination of Scrum Master, Product Owner, and CLP. 2 full days. What is really important, what I did there is I gave them the basics, Agile Manifesto, the Scrum framework. How do you lift this at scale? If you're doing less, then what is different in these ceremonies? Just the mechanics. I had to go over this. What's a product backlog? Why do you have a product backlog? How is it organized? How does this work when you do it in less? Hey, it's customer centric. Whoa, what's slicing? All that kind of stuff. And then I've took the from the Scrum.org trainings. They have this beautiful concept for learning how Scrum teams work with building a simple website. And then the teams really need to build a website with some tools that they can manage, and I've used this idea. I first asked them in the first day to try to build a website for kids. Well, I didn't say it was for kids, for some subject about the koala. So the assignment was build me a website for koala, make teams and build me a website. And then I ran off because I was busy for a management meeting, right? So command and control and try to self-organize. And of course, that was a mess. They didn't know how to do it. There were some people were standing up as leaders and you do this, you do that. And then we debriefed this and it was like, hey, this is your current way of working, right? Component teams, managers saying this is beautiful illustration. And that's like, whoa, big awareness. And then we continued with a second round of a better explanation on how we would do this in a large-scale Scrum environment. So that's where they really made a quantum leap into understanding how this could work from a Scrum perspective, working with multiple teams on one product to be delivered. And then the second day, I spent whole of the afternoon of the second day. In the morning, I've asked them, by surprise, is there some piece of work that you guys in one of your teams have that is lying about already for some time, that is not too big, that we could start working on as a group right here in this training? And then we did, in the afternoon, we started with refinement of that, with the whole group doing a multi-team product backlog refinement. After that, we did sprint planning. After that, we built and we tried to ship. One afternoon. So the comment was, we did more in 3 hours than we normally do in 2 months. So this was just before the flip and gave an enormous boost for those orange people to turn green and go like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. But the key thing is that we took enough time to really try to ship a real item from their real product backlog. And they saw better what the real problems were they had to solve. They understood better how the mechanics were going to work. I still had to do iterations and repeating the way of working later, but still they felt it and now they wanted it. Okay, Daniel.
Well, what roles do the team consist of?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Which roles is that team consisting of? Just
product developers.
Okay, I know the term, but those people were even originally only developers. Like in a sense, everybody is a full stack developer. Everybody can do everything.
No.
They were not segregated into some kind of subgroups like those who work on backend, those who do front end, those who do QA.
No. So this was the teams for the exercise were already cross-component.
Cool.
We made sure we mixed them like you're not
Okay.
with your regular team, so they were already mixed. It was really like a simulation of the real situation after the flip.
And how did they handle the testing of the software? Did they do some test-driven development or acceptance test-driven development?
Yeah, they were doing some manual testing because there was nothing end-to-end automated.
Okay, so zero automation, just testing manually as they went.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and was it a kind of symbiosis of development and testing, or was it sequential?
Yeah, no, it was kind of symbiosis. But I must say, in all honesty, that some people who were very concerned about testing were also people who had the least change mindset.
Yes.
So we worked with
Exactly.
we worked with previous product managers with who felt like a little bit lost. I've got nothing to do because my component is gone. And we asked them like, hey, but you also know how can we validate that this monitoring thing is going to work? And then we combined them with some of the testing people and like a developer to sit in a separate group while they were developing. It was unclear who was in which team. They were all over the place, and they were just sitting in groups behind big screens doing mobbing to try to figure out where it is in the code they needed to make changes, while other people were thinking about how the hell are we going to test this works, right? So it was one big group trying to solve one problem simultaneously. Okay.
Did I get it right that it was an already existing software that they just
Yes.
picked some functionality? So
Yes.
there was no pre-existing test automation for that feature.
No.
Okay, and did you choose it on purpose, or
No,
was
I
it
let them choose. I let them
Okay.
choose.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah, maybe a small question. If you look at the different post-its that you have here, can you somehow indicate where you have spent most time on and which ones were picked up with the team? Because
Yes.
well, looking at it for myself, it looks like, for example, with the tech thing, I guess you will probably spend more time on the shared DoD, but the other things maybe the team picked up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I'll start from the top, product backlog. We had a lot of recurring sessions, like with each PO, depending on the PO. One PO was faster than another, right? But with some PO, it was like a tough technical subject to crack, which is also difficult, like try to make end-to-end slices out of this with somebody who doesn't really understand what end-to-end slicing is. So that was like very difficult. And we agreed to follow the most experienced lead developer in his recommendations because he was having a lot of momentum power over the remainder people in the teams. So that's why we just let go of our idea and let them handle it in their way. But we spent a lot of time, like 4 or 5 sessions, maybe 6 sessions, trying to create product backlogs. We also spent a lot of time, like also 6 sessions, explaining the new way of working.
Mhm.
We spent a lot of time on helping management to lose their fear for the self-designed team workshop. That was really scary for them. We spent time on preparing a shared DoD session. So you were right about that one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, thanks.
All right. This was the email sent by the head of product to announce the day of the flip. So the agenda was welcome, first definition of done. So there were some preparations already done before the flip to get an understanding of the definition of done. But at the day of the flip, I asked everybody to form their current component team. And with their component team, to fetch or create, if there wasn't any, the definition of done of their component. Once that was done, we started to accumulate that into a generic definition of done for the whole company. That was the definition of done workshop. And of course, there were people in there that already were in the preparation definition of done workshops. So they were already pre-prepped to think in a certain direction, which gave us a beautiful definition of done, way too big and ambitious, but still it was there. And then 3 product owners explained what they had on their product backlogs for the coming period. Then we had lunch, and then we did the self-design and team workshop. After that, each team was tasked to find a team name and set up team agreements somewhere in the building, wherever they wanted. And they were asked to come back at 4:30 to drink beer. And that was it. That was the end of day 1. And then day 2, everybody got back in the room, and we asked everybody, like, what's your team name? And what is your vision and mission? Or what is so special about your team? Just to get loose. And some teams didn't even remember the name, and one team didn't have a name yet. And it was all very funny, actually. And after this, we kind of established again the reasons for doing this, for moving towards this higher archetype to install less. We did a multi-team product backlog refinement with the whole group. And in the afternoon, we started the sprint planning. So that was really the start of the sprint on April 8th. So the way we tackled the fear of the management that they would get incredible, stupid teams that were not able to deliver value. Management wanted to tell how the teams would be composed. And I just told them, listen, try to figure out yourself how the people will solve the puzzle. Make sure that you give them a set of rules that they need to comply to. So there's the backlog. So that gives us which domain knowledge you need to work in a certain area. Then there's the definition of done, which is area, domain, vertical on the topologies axis, skills, horizontal axis. You can write this down. Teams no bigger than 5 to 6 people. Somebody needs to understand Scrum Mastery. 1 remote person in each team to give everybody the same problematic experience. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the team design thing. These posters that you see, we created a template poster for each. We know we wanted to have 7 teams in total in a new situation. And we created a template poster for each person to figure out, like, do I want to be or can I be in this team? And we had to do 3 iterations to let them solve the puzzle. It's who you want to work with and where you can comply. We had management give an OK sticker in the end of the day. And of course, there was 1 iteration where a couple of people said, yeah, we're done. Our team is cool. But then, of course, there were 6 other teams still to be formed who were not complete. And they really started to see that, oh, we have to really fix the puzzle for all teams to be complete, and then we can move on. The posters worked really well. I can recommend this. So this is fun. After we did the flip the next day, this is what you saw happening, these kind of sessions. People that were previously owning a component were starting to explain how their architecture works for the stuff that they were trying to start working on. We see a lot of this, pulling up screens and starting to explain stuff to each other, trying to make it visible with drawings. Really cool atmosphere. Another thing that we had to tackle was support. Imagine that support was done by each component team, did support for their component. So now these support tickets needed to be rerouted in a different way. What we did coaching-wise is to reach out to support, and we established a new way of handling bugs because there were too many bugs. And we've agreed that we would no longer allow to. Currently, we asked, how many bugs do you have? Put them all in one list. How many do we have open bugs? I don't know, 125. Good. From now on, we can have no more than 125 bugs, which means if a bug comes in, that bug will be prioritized over feature work. Okay? Because we don't want to keep on increasing our technical debt. If you release a feature and you don't kill the bugs, then you will get like exponentially more and more bugs over time, and it will slow you down drastically on delivering. So you need to be very hard. So this is the zero bug baseline policy. And what we did was one team of the whole group will take support duty. And having support duty means during that sprint, you don't work on features at all. This is a rotating duty for a whole sprint. That means that, once every 16 weeks, you're on duty. And what you do then is you monitor the incoming bugs. And if there's it can be go higher than 125. If you don't get bugs in, you start eating away that list, 124, 123. But if you get bugs, you need to solve those bugs. That's your job. And you sit in with the support meetings. And preferably, you go and work at the support desk for one day. So this is really helping everybody to be engaged with support and connect really close to support, and nothing falling in between the cracks. And it makes you learn a lot from the other components. What else happened here is the assignment is to use the Boy Scout rule. So always leave the camping site neater than you found it. So basically, after the first iteration, the first support duty team, they created a dashboard to monitor the amount of bugs. They created a wiki page with the process of how they do a daily routine to check logs, to go to support, whatever. And don't just solve the bug, but see if you can provide automation for first and second line support to no longer having to report a bug that is maybe not a bug, right? So see how you can help them improve the way of working. This part seems to be something that is extremely valuable. Right, so what happens post-flip? It didn't feel like we had 50 turtles on their backs going like, oh, we lost. It felt like things went on. We just continued. There was some confusion about stuff, like some permissions were missing for accessing some documents or meetings, but that was all solved within the first week. What we noticed that during the flip and pre-flip, people were complaining, remote people are slowing us down, we need to find a solution, the audio is too bad, so we quickly bought Jabras. And there was like difficulties with the remote people. What we've noticed after the flip is that the connection between the remote people and the responsibility of the local people to keep on taking care of those remote people in a proper way so they can contribute has improved drastically. They're no longer impeding anything. Nobody's talking about the remote people are stopping us. Zero. So that problem is actually kind of fixed, even without going along with the suggestion of somebody saying, we need to stop with these sticky notes and move to Miro. We try to, so this is also an advice that I give you. If somebody says something that you really firmly disagree to, don't make it a point. Just let them have the energy to make it a point. And you move to and focus your coaching on the things that you think are important that need to be obtained. And not so much of stopping people from thinking or proposing things that you think are not going to help you. Because for me, moving towards Miro means everybody's going to sit behind a computer and the energy is going down, right? I've seen this happen before. So I would rather not work in Miro, but really want to work with sticky notes. And they need to learn to start using ChatGPT to make a picture of their sticky notes and get it automatically transferred into a digital artifact that you can work with as text. It's about finding the right solution to the problem. I noticed that multi-learning for the developers was very easy. I'm over time, but I'm just going to continue for the recording. If you need to go, then you can go. So the developers really didn't have a hard time to start learning across their domains. That was actually a ramp up, of course, of understanding and asking a lot of questions going into the code. But it learned to interesting dynamics, like being open to mobbing and just start doing mob programming. So the horizontal learning on the org topologies axis, getting better to done. The amount of technical depth that we have is big. And that has become much more visible. For instance, lacking a good automated testing on integration and preventing regression from happening. That's something that we really need to take care of. And some teams never spend time on improving their deployment processes. They just started to deploy less often because it was so cumbersome. But now we can no longer do this. So we can see a lot of technical debt is being pushed away, but that of course has a price. The price of not going that fast into delivering features. Vertical learning, we really focus a lot of time on understanding the why and the what. It is incredibly new for the developers to not just handle a technical task, because they were really down on the Topologies map doing tasks in reality. But they really need to understand, why are we doing this? And what is it that we need to do for solving this job to be done? Once they understand this, then they can really think better on how to solve this problem. For instance, by not doing things. It's really incredible how this already pays off. But it takes a lot of time for them, because they hardly, some of them have never even seen the end-to-end product. They just were focusing on their component. And waste in the system becomes visible. Waste of handoffs is incredible. But we're solving it. Or we solved it already. Finding the focus. Now, listen, we were 3 coaches, swamped with problems, varying from people problems, process problems, technical problems, dealing with resistance, management problems, and it was difficult to focus. And we came up with an idea derived from Obeya. Let's focus on our optimizing goals. Remember the method made from org topologies? Well, here comes org topologies in again. Map, assess, design, and elevate. When you assess, you're going to look what your organizational design is, and you're going to contrast it or compare it to your business objectives. And then you're asking yourself, hey, if I want to conquer this new market, then I need to do a lot of experimentation. So do I have the right organizational design? Do I have the right organization that gives me the capabilities in the organization to deliver on that ambition? And if that's experimentation, you need to be able to, switch contexts and jump on new ideas real fast without spinning up new teams, which is an organizational design change. So this is the idea, right? Let's first, as coaches, think really about what are the optimizing goals? What are the organizational capabilities that we're going to focus on? And here they are: deliver most valuable. We need to make sure that what we deliver is most valuable. And if you look at the roadmap, that's still like a messy thing. So deliver what's most valuable. We need to have an organization that can adapt to change real fast, because we're in this volatile market with new ideas. And we need to explore the unknown, not only for this one area, but actually for 2 of the 3 areas. And maybe also for the 3rd area, the biggest area, actually they're also waiting for delighters. And we need to grow sustainably, which means don't ruin anything that we already have built up. We don't need to start from scratch. Use what's there already, but make it more purposeful. With this in mind, it's easier to take decisions when you're on the shop floor. Okay. And then trying to drive these organizational capabilities, we now in this phase need to focus on multi-learning. How can we get everybody up to speed with multi-learning? Not only the developers, but also those people like QAs and former product developers, product managers and designers. Those people need support, right? And maybe they're the first focus group to do multi-learning, to really start moving in a new direction for their purpose in life. Secondly, reduce complexity, because those components have grown so complex. When you're in a refinement, or when you're in a daily and they've discovered something tremendously difficult that they didn't anticipate, then the message to hammer onto is, listen, don't try to find a solution now that takes into account this complexity, because the solution that you're going to create is going to create more complexity. First, rethink and ask for the component mentors, because that's what we did, right? The old components, the people who are specialists in that have become component mentors. I forgot to say this. Ask the component mentor and have a session with them to understand how we can make this less complex. Do we really need this complexity? Does the customer really need this complexity? If not, then redesign what's there instead of building something more complex on what's there. Just go back and reduce the complexity continuously. And third, everyone contributes. Everyone contributes, meaning focus on self-organization, right? We're all in this together. And by having this focus as coaches, we can now separate easily what needs our attention and what not in this phase. All right. So I think where we are now, we are starting our second sprint. Sorry, we finished our first sprint. Nothing was delivered. We're starting the second sprint. We're ending it almost. There will be items delivered. So there's progress. That's for sure. But the most progress is in the learning, understanding the customer, learning the different code bases, learning the different components and how they are connected, seeing the waste in the system and the technical debt, well, the incredible progress that we make by mobbing. Mobbing is extremely powerful. And there was, of course, some people, component mentors, who were really opposing to this. Development is a individual task. You need to have your focus as a developer, and that's okay. If you don't want to join, then just go and do something else valuable. And that takes one time. Second time they join because they hear the stories from the others on what they've achieved, and then they want to join too, because after all, they're component mentors, so they want to know what's going on. Okay, moving towards the end. Lessons learned again, quickly repeat. Management already knew about LeSS. That really helps. You still need to coach and teach them on how LeSS works. Co-ownership of the problem space, and with that the solution space, using org topologies. Monitor critical mass of believers. So we set a fixed date. We said we were going for April 1st for the flip. It went to April 7th because that was exactly also on a normal sprint crossover. So that's why we postponed for 1 week. That was not due to pressure or anything. We used volunteering for people to participate. We kept on a tight target date for the flip to keep momentum. We did focused coaching, 3 areas, and let's focus on this and then assess each week, do we need to change these areas? Improvise a lot. Don't be afraid to improvise. Use your intuition. It's better to improvise than to waste a day of people, because it will lose their faith in what you're doing with the change. This was enough to get started, but we need to do much more. As you know, LeSS transformations take 2 to 3 years. If we compare to what LeSS says that we should do, deep and narrow over broad and shallow, yeah, it's only one less area or one less implementation with 7 teams. It's not as deep, I think, as Les would say. We're doing a CLP for everybody. So we're deepish, but not very deep. Top down and bottom up, yes, for sure. Check that box. Use volunteering, yes, sir, we do this. Now educate everyone, like I said, not enough. Define product, we didn't do product definition at all. We just accepted the route that they were taking. Define done, yes, we did. Have appropriately structured teams, yes, we did, using a spreadsheet, combining the features with component team matrix. And then 5, only the product owner gives work to the teams. Yes, for sure. Make sure that there is no other lists than the list that they want to work on or need to work on. And then keep project managers away from the teams. Yeah, we do this. I mean, there aren't really project managers. Okay, commercial break, which is if you map what we're doing now to org topologies, then what we've learned is, hey, if you are in an organization, in a bigger organization, where, for instance, they do SAFe and there is 2,000 people working, then you don't have access to the people who are setting the direction with the strategy. If you're a Scrum Master in an Agile release train, then what you need to understand is how you do proper mapping and how you can elevate that art to work better. So we think that it's very sensible to promote a training that is currently called Topologies Practitioner to be an online training where we teach people to do map and elevate predominantly. So you get a lot of mechanics on how to do stuff, but not so much on influencing higher management on changing their strategy. That element of the training has been expanded and has been moved to a training that we call now Topologies Consultant, which is more of assessing and designing. And of course, you also do mapping and elevating in that training, but you're not gonna, we're expecting that you will figure that out for yourself, how to do a multi-team product backlog refinement, and will not spend a lot of time and details on how such sessions is run. So this is a new split that we made. We still need to announce to people that already have Topologies Practitioner from previous training, where we had it more mixed. We will give an online training for everybody who had training before called Topologies to make them Topologies consultants. So we will train you with the additional material to get up to speed and call yourself Topologies consultant. Soon to be announced, okay? And with that, your certification, if you're certified, will move along. No big deal. Then we still need to plan for this training. Will be online, like 6 sessions, online training with some homework in between and reporting back. Yeah, slow thinking. And then there's the Topologies Consultants, where we focus much more on strategic AI and managing change from a managing director or end responsible C-level point of view. And this is going to run for the first time in June in Amsterdam. We're going to be in Brussels too in July. So if you're interested, feel free to join. All right. That being said, this is my last slide. So this is it. I hope this was something of value to you. Large-scale Scrum well, together with Topologies. I'm not using it daily now, Topologies, as in I don't need to use Topologies on a daily basis. Still, I use the elevation part, the workshops. But it's not that everybody's saying to me, "Oh, Topologies is so great." One or two of the developers that were already with the change mindset, they remember and they think it's interesting. The majority of the people just want to bite themselves into the work. I really, of course, recommend try to use Topologies. If you use it to get an assignment, you will see the other areas of stages of your transformation where it will help you to clarify your goals. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to stop the show here and hope to see you later in one of our future sessions.
Thanks,
All right.
Roland.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.